Hey, everybody. Josh Morris here with the Everything Paranormal Show. And joining me tonight is Stephen Williams of Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to talking with you today. I mean, we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Josh. I appreciate it.
That's no problem. So for those of you that are not familiar with them, we're going to get into that right now. But Stephen, what's really cool about their team is that they are more of an intuitive approach, which is really cool. And I'm going to let him explain a little more about that. But Stephen is an intuitive investigator. He's got a couple rescue mediums. So I'll let him kind of explain a little bit about that. So Stephen, hey, why don't you let us let us know. It's live. Let us know a little bit about your team.
Okay. We've been together about 18 months. Started this new group in October of 2018. I've been investigating myself about 18 years, and I was with two groups prior to forming this new group. But I took a little break around 2016 for about a year. I had elderly parents that needed a lot of care, so I just kind of took a little break, and then attended an event which prompted me to start this new team. And there was a public mediumship demonstration is what the event was. So one of my team members was there, and she was doing some audience readings, and she happened to see a little spirit girl that a lot of mediums can see around me. She's actually a spirit rescue from way back when, and she's around me a lot. So she was able to see her and describe her. And after that, I was like, okay, well, it's time to get this going again. So that's how it started.
Yeah. Nice. So you guys decided to kind of form the team, get back into it. And then, so I guess did you start kind of going after like residential cases, just kind of advertise yourself out there and say, hey, if y'all need help, give us a call?
Yeah, I put up a new website at that time. During the time when I was taking care of my folks, there were people in this area that knew about me, and whenever they would hear from someone that needed help, they would contact me privately. So I was doing a little work during that time, but I decided to go ahead and put a brand new website up. And we had a couple of other people working with us in the beginning, another really gifted medium named Sheila here in this area. And then there was a younger girl named Sherry. And they went with us a few times, with me and Kayla a few times. And then they got busy with other things like people do, And then I think it was about April of last year, I do spirit rescue circles, and we can talk about that later if you want to.
Yeah.
So it was a spirit rescue circle. I kept noticing there was a young lady that was sitting right across from me. I could tell that she was looking over my shoulder. And so when it was over, I went over and spoke with her, and she described my great grandmother perfectly. So I knew she was a very gifted medium. So I asked her to join Kayla and I. And that's how we got that group really, solid.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. I don't really. I mean, I have some sensitivity. My wife's a lot more sensitive to me, and I've noticed one thing that we've really noticed about her. She's very much an empath. She really feels a lot of the stuff from other people. For me, I think like I've been able to make contact with spirits through dowsing rods. I've been able to get some good answers and stuff from that. But as far as just receiving it myself, haven't really had a whole lot of that myself. But it's always neat to hear when you hear about when people are able to do that through that psychokinetic level. It's really cool. So now, do you primarily focus on like residential cases, do you go to ever like any of the big locations and do investigations, or you just like to focus on residential?
No, I did those in the early days. I started in 2002. So I've been to the Myrtles Plantation. I've been in the St. Augustine Lighthouse. Anytime I went to a particular city, I'd look up and see if there were any allegedly haunted sites there and try to, go in there and do a little work. But nowadays we just really focus on earthbound spirit rescues, and that's typically going to be at residential, locations. Now we have done some businesses. Actually, our city here there was a lady that was working in the historical department there, and she asked us to go into a home and check it out. And there were some spirits in there, or 3 spirits in there. So we have done some commercial, some business type things, and some public sites, but our focus is really on residential mostly.
Okay. And how do you like to approach an investigation? So a client reaches out to you and, says, "Hey, I've got some issues." What do you do? Where do you like to go from there?
Yeah, so I'm the liaison between the groups. So I will give them a phone call, and then a lot of times I get information just from the phone call because I'm clairsentient, so I can feel the energy of spirits.
Okay.
And something I don't really have to be on site. If I'm on a phone conversation or even read an email, sometimes I pick up information. So usually I know if it's worth our time to go to a location before we ever get there. And
That's
also,
interesting.
yeah, another development is that, Google has sent these cars around everywhere in the country and taken all these street views.
Right.
When the client sends me their address, I will plug that in and I'll get a street view picture and do a screen capture and send it to Kayla and Jennifer, and they're able to read off of that. So they get a lot of information before we ever get to a site.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And you said that's called clairsentient, right?
For me, clairsentient means that I feel their energy, almost like a human K2 meter in a sense, because my crown chakra up in this area is kind of mapped out where if I feel the energy on my right side, I know it's masculine energy. If I feel on the left side, it's feminine. And by working with mediums who are clairvoyant, very clairvoyant, and can see a spirit in a location, I've learned that if I feel on the right side, it's always going to be masculine. If I feel on the left side, it's always going to be feminine. And to me, everything is vibration and frequency, and everything is made of energy. So I feel it's kind of like my crown chakra has been mapped out in a sense. So if I feel it higher, I know it's someone's crossed over, like a crossed over relative. If I feel it lower, it's an earthbound spirit. And then I can also feel the very high vibrational energies like guides and angelic type energies. And then the bad stuff I feel as it goes down my neck. That's very handy. It's kind of like an early warning system. When I go into a place, I know kind of what's happening there.
See, and that's the kind of stuff I feel like I probably need to learn, because when I say I'm being sensitive, I feel like you're right. Like I do feel like sometimes like a human K2 meter, and I know my wife we've noticed with her, like I was telling you with the empath, but she also, like, if I'm doing a live video, she can watch the video from home and she can sense things through the video.
Right.
And she's been validated on that. So we're even though we've been investigating for years, we just never pushed the spiritual or the intuitive side of us.
Right.
We never learned. So now we actually have some friends, and so maybe we're going to probably start getting some guidance to help develop our stuff. So it's pretty cool. I love hearing you talk about the breakdown of what you feel, where it's located, things like that. These are all things I really do need to learn. I really need to get I've been kind of relied on just feeling the presence and go, okay, something's good here. Oh, something's bad here. I can feel something. So I'm going to break out my tech. I'm going to break out dowsing rounds, whatever. I use some crutches like that. So, so that's cool. But speaking of which, but by being that in tune, it kind of helps you to shortcut some of that, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I come from both camps. So when I started out, I used a lot of equipment. In fact, I took a huge duffel bag with me and everything matching in there. Of course, it takes time to set up. And then if you have several recorders going or a camera going, you have to go back and listen to all that, right? So not only are you there for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, you got to go back and review it all. So that takes a lot of your personal life to do that.
Now, we'll take a quick moment. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there. But we'll take a quick moment just to say hi to a few people. We've had like Carol, Christina, Bob Fountain, of course, my wife, Terry Lynn. I See You See Me. Al popped in there just now. Hey. So if I missed anybody, did I say Carol? I think I might have said Carol. So if I missed anybody, I apologize. But Bob did have a question already, and I think now would be a good time because his question relates. And he says, do you use Reiki to keep your energy balanced?
I am an energy channel. I was attuned in Reiki about 10 years ago. And you asked, or you were speaking a little earlier about you need to develop your abilities. And I believe everybody has latent abilities that they can
Right.
tap into. When I was attuned in Reiki, it pretty much opened me up to feeling energy. So I would kind of recommend that you might want to explore that. Um, to me, I don't use the symbols anymore. I was attuned in Asui Reiki, and there are a lot of symbols that they use in that. Now I just kind of open up and allow what spirit is what I call it. People call it God, source, or whatever. I call it spirit. I allow spirit to work through me. And I'm a massage therapist. I'm in my massage room right now. I just had a client that I finished with before we started.
Okay.
But always in my sessions with energy work. And I just kind of clear out and just kind of ask for that energy to flow through me. So I think that attunement really opened me up to where I was able to actually feel this a lot better, a lot easier. Yeah.
Nice. Now, I see you see me also wanted to know, can you remote channel?
Yes. Yeah. We can do it remotely. I had a guy call me from California not too long ago, up in Northern California, and he was asking for some help. And it was late at night, and I told him, well, I'll talk to Kayla and Jennifer and see if they can maybe give you a call or something. Well, later on that night, I could tell there was two spirits in the house. I could tell there was a male and a female. Later on that night, the female actually came to me, and I was able to see her and converse with her and do some counseling and help her actually transition. So the next day, I called the guy up and I said, well, I'm going to tell you what happened last night and see what you think about this. And so I described this girl, and he said, that's exactly who we've seen in our house. So sometimes they'll actually come to you even before. We have them come to us, 30 minutes or 45 minutes outside as we're heading to an investigation site. Sometimes they'll come to you and you get a lot of information before you ever get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty neat, when you get that, I guess, beforehand, before anything happens, you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I always think that's pretty cool. So now, I know the one thing that you talk about, like even on your website,
Mhm.
which for those of you, I don't have his website posted on the banner, but I've got their information if you want to check them out on Facebook. But their website, I believe it's memphisghostinvestigations.com, right?
That's it.
Okay. So just drop the and Spirit Rescue and
Right.
do the .com. So, but if you go to their website, it's pretty cool. I checked it out before a few times, and it's a nice website. It's well designed, and I think one of the things that you said on there was that it just takes you really a few hours. I know a lot of teams will go in, sometimes take a week, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, or even an entire day. And you kind of talk about a few hours. So, how can you elaborate on that one a little bit for me?
Yeah, in the early days when I was using a lot of equipment, we would go in maybe at 8 o'clock and we would be out at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, or sometimes even overnight we'd stay. But now, typically, we go in. I will talk, kind of chit chat with the client for about 10 or 15 minutes. Kayla and Jennifer are both reading the information there, the spirit energy there at the site. They got their notebooks out. They're taking notes. And then we just do a walkthrough. It's just like you go to someone's home and they give you kind of a tour of the house. Now, if we are in maybe a bedroom and we encounter a spirit there, we'll spend time with that spirit. Sometimes the homeowners are with us, and sometimes they prefer to stay in the living room or whatever. But if we encounter a spirit and they're open to communicating with us, and a lot of times we'll spend 5, 10, 15 minutes with that spirit, do some counseling, and they go. So that's all there's, it's an easy transition for them. Sometimes we'll have to come back. We'll continue if they're not ready to make a decision, or if maybe they're shy, or there's other things that are keeping them from actually conversing with us, getting a dialogue going. We'll come back to them later. But typically, we're done with all that within an hour, and then I do a vibrational clearing. I don't smudge. I used to smudge in the early days, but
Right.
I was guided to use a certain technique, a vibrational technique. So that's what I do now. And We're usually out within hour and a half or 2 hours at the most, depending on the size of the house. Yeah, if it's,
Right.
if it's an apartment or a little 2-bedroom house, maybe an hour, something like that.
I don't think I've ever witnessed the vibration technique. I've mostly seen the different smudging techniques, like either it's the oil with the sign of the cross, or it's the sage, more of an Indian style smudging, things like that, or a combination of. I'm not sure if I've witnessed the vibration.
Well, I was guided to a certain frequency to use. It's a tuning fork that I use at a certain frequency, and then I was also guided to use a rose quartz crystal. I always kind of resonated with rose quartz, so it's an amplifier, and the mediums love it. I mean, it's a beautiful vibration, beautiful frequency, and it basically lifts the vibration of the spirits that we're working with. So it kind of helps them get in a clearer state of mind, and it just lifts their vibration. A lot of times, if we've worked with a spirit, or a spirit has not really wanted to communicate that easily with us, then I will go back and do the clearing. A lot of times they just leave then. It's like they're able to focus and see what's always been there that's been kind of clouded for them. So yeah, that's the way we do it.
That's pretty neat. I like that. And I've always been about frequencies. I'm very much about the different frequencies. I even talked about in my book, that's how much I believe in a variety of frequencies. So that's really cool. Now, have you had some stubborn cases? What happens in those stubborn cases?
Yeah, we have had. There was one guy. We went to a house, and this guy he was an alcoholic. Basically, he was a drunk. And what happened? And you would go into the room. You probably experienced this before, Josh, where you go into a room and they project their feelings onto you. If they're, if they feel like they're drunk, they're going to make you feel drunk too, and that kind of thing. Or if they're afraid or whatever. So this guy, he was really the homeowner interpreted his energy and his action, because she was sensitive, as malevolent. But really and truly, what had happened when we got a dialogue going with him, he had killed his fiance in a drunk driving accident.
Mm.
So he was, of course, regretful and ashamed and upset about that and angry. So we worked with him that night, and I could tell when we left, he was on the fence. He wasn't quite sure what to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's okay. Our job is to really just go in and provide them with information, the options that they have, because it's all about free will. I mean, I can tell you, Josh, hey, you live in what, Bristol, Tennessee?
Oh yeah.
I could tell you, hey, you don't need to be in Bristol. You need to be over here in Memphis and West Tennessee, right? And I could talk to you all day long, but you're probably going to stay in Bristol, Tennessee. You really love it there, right?
I know Bob would want me to come out that way.
So it's the same thing with spirits. I mean, you can counsel them, you can tell them about all the opportunities they have in the next level, but it's their free will choice, and you got to honor that. But so this guy, he was on the fence, and we got a call back from that homeowner. I always check back with everybody in about 2 weeks. I like to give it about 2 weeks to be sure that everything's settled down and they're not having any more activity. So this lady contacted me in about a week, and she said, we're still having activity here. And I thought, well, it could be that guy. He's still thinking about it. But when we went down there, what had happened was she was so intuitive that she had attracted 2 new spirits into the house, 2 children, a little boy and a little girl, siblings. And so we were able to work with them and help them release. But the guy was still thinking about it. And being energy channels, another thing I've discovered that we can do is we can actually project that energy to a spirit. Higher vibration, like a love type vibration. And a lot of times that will help them just let go of anything that's holding them here. So he did transition that night. So, he's a little stubborn, I guess you'd say, but I think he was more like undecided rather than stubborn.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I know that you guys have kind of your running slogan is that we don't just investigate, we help them move on.
Right.
Right. So I think that's, have you ever found that that's controversial with people in the paranormal?
Yeah. Some people think, spirits are happy where they are. That's fine. You shouldn't try to make them move on. And we don't try to make them move on. We just I think we feel like it's a responsibility, since we have these clair gifts, where we can actually hear their thoughts and to get a dialogue going with them. We feel like it's a responsibility that we need to let them know that they have options. Okay. And
Right.
they don't have to be there. And children, when early on, had a lot of experiences. In fact, Bob Fountain and I have been conversing a little bit by email. There's a theater up in the area where Bob lives, north of Memphis. It's called the Ruffin Theater. And I know there's a little girl in there because way back in 2004 or 5, we recorded her voice many times. Tried to work with her. I didn't really know that much about spirit rescue until about 2007. So I know she's there. We're actually hoping to be able to do kind of a joint thing between our team and his team to see if we can go in and help that child release. But what I discovered was over the years that when you encounter child spirits that are earthbound, for whatever reason, if they're having fun where they are, or they're lost or whatever, there's almost always a crossed over relative there with them. They're just not aware of them. So it's our job to kind of point them towards that person and help them make that connection. So we're kind of like bridges, energetic bridges.
Now, do you use any tech at all now? And the reason why I ask is because I know, like, clients sometimes when they bring a team in, even though yes, they want help with something and they want answers, sometimes they want that proof, I guess, and obviously being intuitive, it's like they just kind of have to listen to your word. Do they ever still want that kind of hard proof with an EVP or a video or photo or something?
Well, since everybody's seen all these TV shows, they expect something like that. So I carry 2 pieces of equipment is all I carry. One's an EMF meter. It's the old ghost meter that's been around forever. To me, I just like it. It's real sensitive until you drop it, and then it's history. It's a very delicate instrument, but it works really good. So what I do is I offer that to the homeowner. I say, would you mind carrying this around, or would you like to carry this around? That way it involves them in what we're doing. And a lot of times I've discovered that if there are spirits on site, they prefer to interact with the homeowners because they're more familiar with them or they're more comfortable with them.
Right.
Sometimes, usually what happens now is if the spirit gets really excited or they get really agitated, that's when you're going to get some kind of reaction with the equipment. And then the other thing I do is I take a linear PCM recorder and always record everything. So
Right.
I wish I'd kept up with how many investigations I've done since 2002. I mean, this month, July, is my 18th anniversary of doing this because I started in July of 2002.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've done over 1,000, maybe close to 2,000. I don't know, but I've got recordings of every single one I've ever done.
It can add up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll hit a couple questions here. I'll put a couple on the screen. Terry Lynn says, what was your scariest case?
Well, my scariest cases are usually not spirits. They're the people in the house. Because you never know. I'm sure you never know who you're going to run into in some of these houses. And it's apparent sometimes that people are having mental issues, and I've been in some situations where as soon as I walked in the house, I was ready to leave because, it was obvious that that person was having some psychological issues, and you just don't know what a person's going to do in that kind of situation. You try to in the vetting process, when you're talking to people, and when we have a questionnaire before actually, it's a legal permission questionnaire. So that's the last step. But a lot of times people can kind of slip through those things. But in terms of spirit stuff, there was a lady I worked with over in Arkansas. I think she's actually written a book about her experiences, but it was a Ouija board. I don't think I need to say too much more than that, but what is a Ouija board? It's just a piece of cardboard with some letters printed on it, and it's a plastic planchette, right? But it's what you do with it. It's your
Right.
intent.
Yeah, it could be anything.
It could be anything. So what she did was, I don't know why she started doing this. I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but she got obsessed with it. So she started dreaming about this guy. He presented himself as a Civil War soldier, and he would enter her dreams, and he was really pleasant and very charming. And then it turned dark, and then she claimed he was actually physically assaulting her. But when I was over there one time, I went over there several times over in Arkansas, and her husband had to run to the store real quick and get something. So I was in the house there with her alone, and this gravelly voice came out of her, and it was pretty scary. So
Yeah, I bet. Let's see. Bob was next with another one saying, question, I'm currently working on a case in Heading, Tennessee, and we got several EVPs of help us. I'm leery of those requests. How do you handle it, Stephen?
well, if the person contacted us and I was able to discern that there was actually spirit activity taking place there, we definitely go and just see if there's any way we could help that spirit, since we do have the abilities where we're able to connect with them and hear their story. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Have you ever, and this is just to kind of build on Bob's question, but have you encountered that where it was a deceptive spirit trying to be that little girl and trying to say help us or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. So in my experience, I call them posers. Some people call them trickster spirits, but in my experience, since everything is energy and everything's vibration, they don't seem to be able to hold that image. I can remember one case, we were in Midtown Memphis at a business. This was when I was working with some other people, another medium actually. And it appeared that there was a little girl. All of a sudden, we went to this one room and there was a little girl there. Well, what I've learned to do is focus on any energy that we encounter, really intently focus. And all three of us will do that. And they cannot hold that vibration very long. So all of a sudden, this thing shifted from a child into like a really dark, tall energy. So we have the abilities to kind of, and also I feel it, when it goes down my neck, I know it's a dark energy. So it's something like they can't get past that. They can't trick us in that sense. So we're able to actually see what they look like.
So you're able to compare that feeling when you have that little girl saying, help me, but you feel it. And so you're able to kind of use your BS meter, huh?
So I say to Kayla and Jennifer, I said, really focus on that energy and see what you're really getting there. Because there's an old school here in the Memphis area, in one of the suburbs here, and it's being used for a community center. And I used to teach workshops there, paranormal investigator training workshops, and there's been a lot of spirits in that place. But the last time that we were able to go there, one of the local newspapers wanted us to go there, and they wanted to do a story about it. So there was this young look. He presented as a young boy, and apparently people have been pushed down the steps up on the stage area. It used to be an old school, so that was the cafeteria area. So we got there, and they said, "Well, we're seeing this young guy. He looks like a teenager up on the stage, and I could feel a male energy, but then it started crawling down my neck, and I said, something's not right here."
Uh-oh.
They said, "Well, he's covered in soot." I said, "Oh, okay." So we work with spiritual allies on the other side. When we encounter something dark like that, I just call on them, and they, if it's in the highest good of everybody that's there, they're going to take it away. So that's basically what happened, that energy. So yeah, they don't get past us. They really don't. So
We have Al James said, favorite location. Do you have a favorite location?
it's no longer there. There's a house that I call the Henry House that was just a rental house between kind of between Memphis and where Bob lives up in around Covington, Tennessee. And what happened was there was a family there that was renting the house, and they contacted us because the last straw was the mother had gone into the shower and somebody slammed the shower door behind her. I think soap in there or something like that. So that was it. I mean, they'd had a lot of things happen, but what was going on was they had a young girl in the family who said that every day when she came home from school, there was this little boy named Henry who was standing at the back door waiting on her and wanted to play. And I said, well, what did he look like? She said, well, he was wearing capris. And I didn't know what capris were, so I had to look him up. But they're like knickerbockers, like the kids in the 30s used to wear, like on the Little Rascals. Those.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So that house, that kid was amazing. I could bring anybody from, that was kind of back in my equipment days, and I was just getting into spirit rescue. But I could bring people from my day job or anybody in that house, and I had the EMF meter with me, and I would say, hey, Henry, how are you? And he'd light it up, make noise and everything. And a lot of times in the early days, I would take period music. Like if we've seen a child like from the turn of the century, I found some old children's songs that were Victrola recordings.
Right.
Purchase those, and I would take those in and play those. Or if you're in Civil War area, play, Dixie when you're on the Union side, right? But anyway, I would take this music in there, and this kid would just go nuts. He would just make the equipment go crazy. And so I worked with him for a long time, and he was another one that was stubborn, and he never would release. Now, a medium friend that I took in there, she connected both with him and with the girl, and I could feel the feminine energy in there. And that was his little sister. So I was there. What happened was the family eventually moved out because the electric bill at that time period probably should have been about $200 max for the house. Well, it got up to about $1,200. It was what they were doing. This Henry was drawing energy.
Holy moly! We had a heat pump problem, and it was running off of emergency power. And we got a bill for like $900. It blew our mind. We're like, what? So $1,200. Yeah, I can.
So that was it. I mean, they moved out. So I said, well, can I stay in the house? Just one night, if you don't mind. And they said, sure. So I stayed in the house. I think it was the next night after they moved out. And it was a raging thunderstorm. When I think back about this experience, I still can't believe I did this, but I was in the house by myself during this raging thunderstorm. And during a really intense part of that storm, all the power went out. So I had a flashlight with me, of course, and I was going through the house looking for a breaker box. And I felt like someone had dumped a tub full of ice cold water all over me. At the same time, I heard a giggle. So I turned and looked, and there was this little girl, looked like she was about 6 years old, wearing a white dress, long dress. She just ran past the doorway. So I knew she was there. And there was one part of the house that was newer. So actually what the family had done before they moved out was they would all go down this one room and sleep together because they were afraid to sleep in the other part of the house. So I went down in that area, and I kept talking to her, and I got the idea to maybe sing to her. So I sang a song that I used to sing to my own daughter when she was little, about that age. And she actually came to me. You got spirit there?
I just heard a noise like in my studio, like I've never heard it before on this side of me. It
could be Henry. So anyway, I sang to her, and she actually came. I could feel her get up on my lap because I just became electrified head to toe, and I was actually able to help her cross over because I could feel like there was an aunt or mother or grandmother or someone there. So I connected her with that energy, and she did transition, but Henry never would. And so I went back. It was the last night I could be in the house. So I met a different medium, and about a month later, and I thought, well, I'm going to take her over there and see what she sees. When we got there, I couldn't believe it. They had demolished the house. There was this huge pile of rubble there.
Oh.
But on top of the pile of rubble, about 10 or 12 feet at the very top of this pile of rubble, was a chair. And I said to her, do you see anybody here? Because I could feel him there. And she said, yeah, there's a boy sitting in that chair.
Wow.
So never could get him to go. So that was probably my favorite place I ever investigated, because it was kind of like it was a long period of time that I was trying to work with him and try to get him to cross over.
Yeah, and it's interesting to find out like different paranormal either investigators, researchers, however you want to view yourself. It's always interesting to find out what the favorite or the least favorite locations are, because it's different for everybody. Like for you, it was a really cool story about the spirit and that connection you had with that little boy and stuff. And then some people, their favorites because of the amount of activity they get, or sometimes it's just the overall experience of the people and things. I don't know. It's very cool. It's interesting to hear the different takes of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I and one thing I wanted to kind of backtrack to. We got one more question here in the thing, but I wanted to get to something I heard you talk about. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, and that is, have you ever noticed yourself with because this is something I've seen with different investigators at some point or another. Have you ever found yourself attached to certain cases where you just either tend to keep going back to something, or you keep wanting to go back, maybe a location? Have you experienced that?
Well, I would say the Henry Houses probably falls in that category, but nowadays we're able to actually go in, like I said, an hour or two and take care of business, because I actually had Ghost Nation contact us wanting to know if we would have some cases that they might be able to work. And I said, well, I'm sorry, when we get through, there's nobody, usually there's nobody there. They've already crossed over. But there's a lot of places I've been in my life. I did not I did not really develop this sensitivity, the clairsentience, until about 2007. So there's been a lot of places I've been in my life, like castles in England. I would really like to go back to, just to see see if I could feel anything there, and also if I could help anybody there, because a lot of these teams, the paranormal teams that are on TV, think about all the places they get access to. But many times all they do is go in and get evidence and they leave. And, I think what people lose sight of is that if there's a spirit in a house, if it's a child or if it's an adult or whatever, it's someone's grandmother, it's someone's child, daughter, son. These are people, and I think a lot of investigators it becomes more of a phenomena thing, and they've kind of lost sight of the humanity of all this. And it's like if you had a family member, like someone in your family, and wandered off, like an elderly person, and they fell into a hole or something, you would certainly try to go find them. You try to help them get out of that situation. But if you looked at it like some of these people are doing, if they come across something like that, they might lower a camera in or video camera in and videotape everything that's going on, then leave, right? So it doesn't really help anybody that's in distress. That's kind of what I'm in.
That'd be like what I'd do right now. I just like, hey, I'm filming you down there in the well.
Right.
Hey, I could throw myself under the bus. It's my show. All right. So Bob says, he said, do you notice the immediate change in energy when an entity crosses over?
I do, because when I feel earthbound spirits, I feel their vibration right around here. And as they transition, when I'm talking about feeling their vibration, it feels like a tingling, almost like there's ants marching around in this area of my head. So when they transition, it actually goes all the way up to the top here. So I'm able to, that's the way I perceive their crossing, because what's happening is their vibration is increasing and raising as they become more aware, and they leave they leave the connections here behind, and they enter into a different vibration, different frequency. Now, the mediums that I've worked with describe it differently. One medium I worked with said there was like a slit of light that opened up, almost like an elevator door. And when she looked inside that light, she could see people. She could see people holding out their hands. So I'm sure that was the loved ones of that spirit. Another one described it as a horizon, that opened up, and as far as she could see, there was people in that horizon. So I think everybody perceives it differently.
Do you think it could be how the spirit perceives it?
Huh?
Do you
Could
think
be
it's how the spirit could be perceiving it and you see
projection.
what
Yeah.
they're seeing?
Yeah, it could be projection, but for me, it's, it's all about feeling the vibration and the frequency. So
Makes sense.
I feel it rise up, and I know at that point that our work is done. Now, if I feel it go up a little bit, like the guy that was that had unfortunately killed his fiance drunk driving, I know that he's what I call on the fence. He's still thinking about it.
Yeah.
He's probably got one toe in the next level up, and he's still got a whole foot down here. So he's not able to really let go of everything and to forget about this and just look forward. People talk about the light and all this. I don't know. To me, it's more like a frequency thing. It's like a vibrational thing.
Okay. We got Bob. Let's see. Bob Fountain said, question: what do you think happens? Bob loves to test Jesse, right? But he says, what do you think happens to a spirit who is attached to the house when the house is destroyed?
Well, I think Henry's a good example of that. I went back to that location about a year after I was there with the medium, and she saw him on a chair, sitting in a chair on top of the rubble. The whole site was grown over, had little trees growing up in it and everything. And I could still feel his energy there. So he was definitely connected to that site for some reason. Maybe there had been, maybe he grew up in that house, or maybe there was even an older house there, way back in 1800s or something, or maybe he had died on the land as they were traveling through that area. For some reason, his energy was really connected to that particular location. So I would say in his case, he was okay there. That's where he wanted to be. And maybe in his perceptions, he was still seeing what was there previously.
And Terry Lynn, who's my wife also, she said, really enjoying his take on things. He thinks a lot like I do. Guess that's the empath part of me. Sometimes I get emotional when I feel the spirit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when you witness a crossing, new mediums that I work with, they burst into tears. I mean, it's very emotional to feel that release and to feel, it's just because the way we work, what we do is, the way a spirit rescue works for us is that we will do a lot of counseling, and then when they feel like they're ready, or we know that they're ready, I used to have to ask for this. Now it happens automatically. I used to ask for the perfect loved one to be brought for that spirit. So, we don't know if you're working with a teenage boy, for instance, you don't know if he had a good relationship with his father. Maybe he hated his father, right?
Right.
So you don't want to ask for his father to be brought. That's the worst thing you could do. So I was kind of guided, just ask for the perfect loved one. And sometimes they'll bring a pet, believe it or not. It's a dog, they'll show up. But now it just automatically happens. So our job is to point their focus and their attention towards that loved one who's there. Sometimes with children, that loved one's always there. That lady was the aunt or the grandmother, I can't remember which one it was, that was with that little girl in the house. She was always there. She was always protecting the child and with her. But the child wasn't aware of her. The little girl wasn't aware of her. So it's our job to kind of help them turn around and see that person and hear them. So we kind of project energy to them and kind of makes an energetic connection where they can actually perceive them. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to come back also to when you started talking about spirit rescue circles. That sounds interesting to me. So can you describe a little about what spirit rescue circles are?
Okay. I would say about 10 years ago, I met a medium, an English medium, and she was in her 80s. And she told me about what they used to do, what was called, she called them sending circles. I just kind of changed that to spirit rescue circles because I don't think people know what a sending circle is. But basically what you do is what they did, and they started this after World War II. She was a young girl at that time. They would get together in their homes weekly and raise the vibration. They would do it through singing, through other techniques. And since they were able to see spirits or sense their energy, what they would do is they would ask their guides to bring any earthbound spirits that needed help crossing to them. So she told me about that, and we started doing them here. I've actually taught that a little bit here. And it's kind of a picture building thing. So if you're sitting in a circle with intuitive people, like Terry Lynn might feel a spirit who's maybe heartbroken or something like that. And then another person who's more clairvoyant say, well, I see this young girl. She looks like she's about 14 years old. Somebody else pitches something in. All of a sudden you get a pretty good picture of what spirit's about, their story. And then you just kind of work with them a little bit, do some counseling, and call for that loved one, or the loved one automatically shows up. You help them release. Here comes another one. So depending on how long you want to do the circle, you might end up helping a dozen spirits cross over. Yeah. And sometimes they come in large groups. Yeah. We actually had some people from 9/11 show up one time.
Really? Wow. Have you noticed spirits traveling far? I mean, is there, I guess, distance? Sometimes people have a hard time with thinking about distance in spirit realm, but I'm sure, I've always felt distance is relative, in the spirit realm. It's,
I think, everything's kind of overlapping, but like the story I told you about the girl in California. I mean, I just talked to the guy on the phone. I could tell she was there. I could tell there was a male there. As I was getting ready to go to bed that night, I was kind of got in that hypnagogic state, or what do they call it, where you're kind of where you, like you're driving in your car and you don't know you've driven 20 miles and you kind of zone out. So I was kind of in that state, and she came to me. I could see her very clearly. So I was very open to the energy, and that was all the way from across the country. So yeah, I don't think there's much that a spirit, if they want to visit you or connect with you, I don't think time and distance is any kind of problem.
Yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about as well is the industry as a whole. As we talk about paranormal research and things like that, where do you feel like the needle is in terms of maybe scientific research or data? Do you feel like we've made any advancements in the last, 10 or 20 years, or do you feel like we've gone backwards, or do you think we're, where do you feel like the needle's at?
I got started in this in 2002. So that was a couple of years before sci-fi put taps on, and so I watched some of those shows to see what they were doing. And then when some of the shows, they started provoking and being disrespectful, I just stopped watching them. So I really, honestly, I don't know that much about what's going on. I don't watch them that much. But, I respect everybody's approach. I mean, I started out using equipment, and, I help people that way. And I think that's however you can help people. That's the main thing. If your goal is to help people, the more that people understand, the less they fear. So
Right.
if you can help somebody to, a lot of times people, when they have the spirit activity go in their home, they think it's demonic, they think it's malevolent, but a lot of times it's a cry for help. Like the guy that was the alcoholic. He was trying to let people know what was happening to him or how he felt is the only way he knew how. So I don't know. I know there's a lot of equipment now, spirit boxes and that kind of thing. I've never used them. I haven't used equipment like since 2007, except I take an EMF meter with me. I told you about that earlier, and I give it to the client. But the main reason I take that is because I have been in locations where there's bad wiring, or maybe there's a transmission line in the backyard. We went to a house here in Memphis, and as soon as the three of us walked in, we all had extreme headaches, and my two extremely gifted mediums couldn't pick up anything. They walked like into this fog. And what it was, we looked up, I got a meter out and checked it, and the whole house was bathed in EMF. I mean, I've never seen a house like that. The poor lady, and she's been living in that for years and years. But so we actually asked our guides if they could adjust the frequency or something. So we were able to actually kind of tune in after that. But gosh, I mean, I've had that happen. There was a house in Nashville I went to where there were some spirits in the house, but the lady she was feeling like there was a lot more going on. She took me over to this one wall. So there's a portal here. I see all these faces coming up. I said, "You see the faces right now?" "Yeah." Well, there was nothing there. But what happened was she was someone had let her live in this house to help her out. And she was on the second floor, and the head of her bed was right against where the power came into the house. And I mean, it was like off the scale. So
Right.
she was sleeping in that every night. And I said, "At least move your bed, to the other side of the room. Go to the bedroom if you can." So
Right.
that kind of stuff can affect. So that's really the only thing I need equipment for these days, because I said I'm kind of like a human K2 meter, and my two mediums are spirit boxes, So
Right.
you go into a house and you've got a spirit box, or you've got a medium who the spirit can actually converse with. Who are they going to go? What are they going to use? Are they going to use a spirit box, or are they going to go to the medium?
Right. And I can understand where the EMF meter would help you just for something on that physical
Right.
electrical level that can cause those hallucinations or those problems. So I mean that's real good. And I see Bob's got yet another question for you because he loves it. And we love Bob. He really loves to challenge us. I love it. He says, "Do you find that you get more spirits than usual when you are rescuing the primary spirit who wants to cross over as we?"
As well. Well, usually, like I said, we kind of go through room by room, and spirits are no different than people. You're going to have some that are outgoing. You're going to have some that are friendly. You're going to have some that are reclusive or shy. But here's a good example of what he was talking about. Okay, I was with a medium in Andersonville, Georgia, Fort Sumter, which was the most notorious Confederate prison camp for Union soldiers. So many thousands died there.
Yeah.
So my medium friend and I were down there on a trip, and we decided to go to this place. So we were walking through the battlefield, and this young soldier, he was in spirit form, approached us, and he was looking for help. And because if you have these abilities, it's almost like you have a light around you, so they're kind of drawn to you like moths to a flame. So
just said that exact phrase just the other day on
really?
somebody. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, that's that idea. But so he came to us, and we started doing some counseling with him. And he said, "Well, I'm still on duty." I said, No. This is many, many years after that war. And I said, I got the idea. I said, "Okay, I say I always call for the perfect person." Well, this time I kind of went outside that a little bit. And I said, I asked for them to bring his commanding officer. So they brought this guy's commanding officer. He was in spirit. He's already crossed over. And he said, you don't have to be here anymore. You can go ahead and leave. You've done your duty. Go home to your family. So he crossed over, and immediately this big line lined up behind all these guys. So yeah, there's sometimes if you get one spirit to cross over, it's like an event that they are able to perceive, and other spirits will go at that same time.
It almost makes you wonder if that soldier may have been trying to hold back people, like that was his job. Like he was defending something.
Really? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what soldiers like to do, right? They defend, or they're on the offense. So it would almost make you feel that, like when you tell me that story, that's how it feels to me. Like now that he's gone, they're like, "Hey, the defender of the light is gone."
Right.
But yeah, that's really cool. And I guess that's really good. I've always been on the fence of whether to help spirits cross over or not. When I have been in that situation recently, in the past, I never really did. I was more selfish, more inward. Back in the day, it was more about capturing evidence and all, and even it was helping the client,
Right.
it was still inward of my own path.
Right.
And then, of course, now I'm more about helping people and education and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, now I feel like I show them the options. I say like, here, this is what I kind of at least guide them in the right path. I don't necessarily help them cross over. That's just me, but I think it's really cool to hear what you're doing and to hear that side of things, and to hear your side of it and how you view it, because there's so many different beliefs and so many different things.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, and I do appreciate that from you as well. Um, there's a couple fun questions I want to ask you. So,
Okay.
a couple fun ones. One is, and this is for my buddies. My buddies at SRS Paranormal, they love to ask this question, and so I kind of stole it from them. And that is, if you pass away and you're a ghost,
Uh-huh.
what would you like to wear? What would be your ghost outfit?
Probably white.
Just white, just a white sheet,
A
or
white robe or something. I don't know.
okay,
I,
fair
I
enough.
I hope when I get there, I hope I get the opportunity to be a spirit guide for somebody, because I
Okay,
kind of feel like I'm doing that for people here. Um, I get opportunities to help people, living people, with some counseling, because I get messages when I'm doing my energy work and stuff. So I guide a lot of people who are waking up to their gifts, to teachers, to books, to opportunities. So I feel, in a sense, I'm kind of like a little spirit guide here, in a sense, because I get the opportunity to help people, on their path to maybe get to where they really want to go, but they don't know how to get there.
yeah, I mean, and that makes sense. So I could see where you'd be a spirit guide in the afterlife. And I think, who knows, maybe that a lot of the spirit guides were people like yourself in real life, because again, a lot of times you are what you are in the spirit life. If you were a hole in the real world, you're probably going to be a hole in there. But yeah, and I think that makes sense to me, that maybe some of these spirit guides were natural leaders or guides themselves that helped people, teachers or things like that, that enjoyed helping in that sense. So in the afterlife, who knows? So that's pretty cool. I don't think anybody's ever answered with that. So that's pretty cool.
Mine are Native Americans. I've had a series of Native American guides come along. The one now, I call him Seeing Crows, because literally he will show me crows all over the place, and groups of crows, crows on top of my house. I've had them sit on a tree branch where I could walk right underneath them and touch them if I wanted to. So I always know he's with me and around me. And when he shows me those crows, I stop. And I would tell other people, if they see signs, stop and think about what you're thinking about, what you're planning, or what you've just done, and really pause and pay attention to, because your guides are going to show you those signs when it's really important for you to think about those things.
Okay. Now, I actually, before we get to the second fun question, my question, I want to get to this question before I forget. And Bob says, last question: what are your views on reincarnation? That could be a doozy.
Oh, from what I've learned from spirits who have crossed over, have come back and talked to us, including my parents, I feel like there are more opportunities for us there. And if that's the experience we want to have, we will stay there. But if we want to come back, and to me, the earth plane and our experience here, our reality here, is like a classroom. So we come here to learn lessons. I think one of my big lessons this time was forgiveness, um, and compassion. So I've had some hard lessons in that area, but I think we have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I do believe in reincarnation. I do. Mhm.
Okay. I have a take on it, but it's kind of hard to get it completely explained. But anyways, in any case, yes. Now I know Bob said that his spirit was Native American. I know my wife's got a very close relationship with Native Americans. For some, it's always calling to her every time something Indian comes around. She also had experiences when she was a child with the Native American spirit. So do you feel like, in your opinion, I know my opinion of Native Americans is, I've always felt like their spirits are very strong, because of how close they were in life to that connection with Mother Earth. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I've never, in 18 years, I've never come across an earthbound Native American spirit. I think they were way beyond Europeans or anybody in that time period in terms of spirituality and being comfortable with the afterlife. Never come across a Native American earthbound spirit. Now, I haven't come across in sacred sites, they will sometimes put sentinel type energies there, and they're usually very tall. And I have experienced some of those, but those are there for more protection, yeah, or for healing. We actually went to a house in Midtown Memphis, and we were up in the upstairs, and we thought it was a portal at first. And then Jennifer really focused in. It was a Native American energy that was placed on the land. So the house had been built around, around this energy. But when she conversed and had a dialogue with the energy, it said that it was there for healing, for protection of the land, for healing, and that there were other ones in our area. So they might be all over. I don't know.
Yeah. It's really interesting to learn about the spiritual side of Native Americans, and it's definitely something I've felt strongly about with they just had that connection that we just don't seem to be in our culture, or a lot of other cultures don't seem to be sometimes as close. I don't want to again stereotype, but it just, they were very in tune, and I think that's why we see such strong spirit activity from them. And I think that's really cool.
See the artwork above my head here.
Yes.
That's a Texas artist named Mark Keithley, but that painting is called Band of Brothers. And that's in my massage room because I want that energy.
Right.
I work with that energy. So I want it in the space where I'm working with people, both doing my massage work and also energy work. So I have a lot of American type imagery around my house.
So, all right. So now we're going to get to my question I like to ask everybody. If you come on my show, I like to at least ask this question for sure. And that is, if you could go back in time for one day as a ghost, like where you just observing only, you're not going to change or alter history. But if you just can go back and observe one day in history, when would it and why?
I would want to go and sit at the feet of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
As he delivered the Sermon on the Mount, just to feel the energy and to experience that elevated energy of that master. So yeah, I mean, that would be kind of paramount for me. Yeah. Just to hear the words come out of that mouth and to know that was being channeled through him, and it'd be amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great moment. I've heard a variety of them on the show, and that is an original one so far. So that's great, and I admire that, because again, there's so many moments in history. I've always picked a day in building of the pyramids, because I feel like it unlocked a lot of other answers for me spiritually and things, because I would probably pick almost many days in Jesus's life. There was some definitely interesting moments in his life and things like that, for sure. And you picked out a great one to again feel that power on him delivering that sermon, or probably many of the other ones he did too. So that's awesome. And are you originally from Memphis? I know you're operating out of that area, correct?
Right. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Memphis now. In probably about 18 months, I'm moving to the Gulf Coast. So I'm going to operate down there. I'll do the same kind of work down there, and hopefully I'll have some.
You're going where?
The Gulf Coast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll be leaving Memphis in about 18 months. But no, I've been here all my life, and been very blessed to work with about a dozen different gifted mediums over the past 13 years. That's when I really found out about spirit rescue and how that can be much more effective when you're trying to help people. I think it's great to provide evidence, but honestly, when someone contacts us, they know what's going on in their house. They're not going to waste their time or our time, because there's almost every single time we've ever gone anywhere, except for maybe two in my whole 18 years, maybe 2 or 3 times where, there's somebody having some psychological problems and nothing was really going on there. But almost always there's something happening there that's significant, otherwise it wouldn't contact you.
Yeah. I still got noises going on, and I had my wife go check outside my studio, and there's nothing. No, it's weird. That's weird.
It feels like a male spirit to me. So,
Well, what side did you say that male does? Is it the right side?
yes, sir. For me,
I felt right tingling over after a while. I was feeling that right thing after a while. I'm like, what? Is there something? Is he trying to tap into my head or something? And it was on the right side, but I don't know. But anyway, something's just making a lot of noise in my studio. It's weird. And my wife looked on the outside, and there's nothing on the inside. There's a lightning bug in here, but it's not what's making the noise.
Yeah,
it's weird. I have a lightning bug in here too.
I feel like there's male energy around. So whether or not you've drawn one in this conversation or whatever, sometimes they'll do that. So
possibly. See, folks, see what you see on a live stream. We actually end up probably having some kind of spirit. I don't know what it is. We'll figure it out, though. I'm sure. My wife and I have been known to break into sessions afterwards to either handle what came here, or we've had her grandmother, we've had a friend's aunt, we've had some things come here, and we've had to talk to them, and usually they just want to pass on a message or whatever, and and I'm sure you've probably noticed that too, spirits that just want to pass on a message or something before they, do whatever, So can you disclose where on the Gulf Coast, or is that too much?
It'll be in Alabama. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Cause see, my wife grew up what they call Southern Alabama, or the Florida Panhandle.
Yeah.
And I actually had spent like 13 years down there, off basically like Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola area, that part of the Gulf Coast.
I'll be close to that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's really nice down there. It is. We found a pretty good happy medium between, up north, down there, we're at that Bristol, Tennessee. We love the mountains. But certainly we are going to go back to the Gulf Coast, and we visited it last year for a little bit too. So,
well, when I get situated down there, I'll let you know, and you guys come down. Together, and certainly there'll be some public sites down there that would be worth going to, and maybe trying to help spirits release from those sites.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've got quite a few things planned for some different things coming up, where we will be going out and about to other things. I've been going back out in the field myself, just, goofing around and making some Urban X style videos for people to get a chance to get their feeling and feel, paranormal stuff like that. But also, so go ahead if you can, being on that note about you moving, are you going to be having to do a new team, or are you?
Oh yeah. Well, Spirit will send me someone to work with. They always do. So,
okay.
Yeah. In fact, I just added Bob, his group, to our website, because I'll refer people to them once I leave the area, because I respect what he's doing and have seen.
Oh yeah.
Looking forward to maybe working with Bob some here before I leave the area. But yeah, I mean, they seem to be really up to date on all their tech stuff, and they also are incorporating some spiritual stuff. So I think we can help each other. And then, you always want to refer people to reputable teams that have been into the field for a long, long time. So they definitely seem to be fitting the bill there.
Oh yeah. And, I wanted to make sure, and of course, I wanted to look at adding a link for you, if that's something that you wanted, or if it's something you want to wait until you get set up. But I also, with my website, I try to, and I'm kind of bad about updating my website at times for my links, but I'm trying to add a little more of that reputable teams that people can go to, or spiritual warfare. I've got a friend of mine that's a preacher, and he does the spiritual warfare But you of course is also on that intuitive side. So I would love to have a place that people can go for you as well. Um, and I feel like we come together, and if we have a little bit of unity or that paranormal unity, um, I think some of us are drawn together for a reason. I met Bob. Him and his team are good folks. Matt Sorge and SRS Paranormal. They've been extremely good at things. And some of these teams are very focused on really taking care of clients, really doing a good job versus just going in and thrill seeking and YouTubing and stirring things up and leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many teams out there that I call them Facebook gadget groups. They don't even spend enough time to put up a website. To me, that's kind of a test of if somebody's got a website, at least they put some time and effort into it, and they're trying to build a good reputation. But it's so easy just to go and buy equipment these days and just call yourself a paranormal investigator, and emulate what you see on TV. I don't agree with, I don't know what's going on in the TV shows now, but I didn't like what was going on.
Right. Trust me, you're not missing anything. We don't really watch a lot of them ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think there's a couple of them that are trying to, there's that balance, they're trying to find that entertainment, but yet still be, fairly serious investigators, so I do think that it's there, but it's few and far between. And it's hard for people to decipher that. Just amateur, people watching. But one last thing as we go to wrap up here, what do you got coming up for you in the future?
Well, we're still doing investigations, wearing face masks. Got one tomorrow night, several more lined up. I'm actually, during the COVID thing, it's given me some time to start a project that I've thought about doing for many, many years, and people have told me you need to do this. So I started writing a book, a guidebook for spirit rescue, which will have all the things I've learned from working with different mediums, and all my own personal experiences and the different spirit types, how to work with them, that kind of thing. So I'm probably a little bit more than halfway done with that. And so I plan to publish that later this year. And my hope is that people who are in paranormal investigation in that field will at least maybe consider the possibility that they can do something beyond just collect evidence, that they can actually affect a positive change in people's lives by helping those trapped souls, those confused souls, actually find peace.
Yeah. And definitely let me know, because I would like to get the book too.
Okay.
I want to check it out. I as a fellow author, trust me, I know, and it's really cool. Make sure you go down and get it in the library too. Get your book in the library. I'm telling you, it's worth it. That's also something, because again, sometimes it gives that extra access for people, especially locals and things like that. Right. That if you have a book like that can help people, get it in the libraries too. And then you can say, hey, I'm in the public library, man.
Well, I'm a KISS kind of guy, so it's got to keep it simple, Stephen. Yeah. Stupid or whatever you want to say.
Right.
It's got to be really simple for me, because if it gets complicated with a bunch of rituals and stuff like that, I'm going to turn and go the other way. So it's going to be a really simple. It's going to be a thin, tiny little thing, but it's going to be packed with a lot of information. But it's going to be simplified, because I think the easier it is for people to do this, the more they're going to be inclined to try it. And then if they see it's effective, they're going to incorporate that into their work. So.
Yeah. I mean, look, I always tell people just write how you feel, and when it's done, it's done. When I wrote my book, I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I wasn't going to be like, well, I hope that the top scholars love my book and all the fancy words that I'm trying to use. I didn't want to do all that. I just wanted to speak to the people that I normally would speak to in the paranormal field, and just pass on my experiences or my theories and those things. I wasn't worried too much about what anybody else was really going to think. It was more about, I wanted to get that out there. It was kind of for myself as well. It was a project I always wanted to kind of complete, because I have a bad problem about not completing certain projects. So, but really it's, and that's why I really wish you luck on on finishing it. And I hope it really goes well. And certainly hit me up when you get it done. I'm more than happy to help you promote it, and maybe we can get you back on when you get it done, and we can take a look at it or something. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, whatever we can do to help support you. You've been a great guest tonight. I definitely appreciate having you on here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk about this.
That's no problem. Did you have anything else that you wanted to plug?
No.
All right.
Do public events or anything like that. I mean, our work is kind of behind the scenes, kind of confidential, incognito type stuff. So even on our website, if you go and look, on our Facebook page, you're going to read a little synopsis about each investigation, but we're very careful to keep it very confidential, and just make it where people can come and get help and not have to worry about any kind of exposure.
Awesome. Well, listen, Stephen, it's been wonderful having you on here. Hopefully we'll see you on the show again at some point. Folks, Stephen Williams with Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. Guys, keep up with this guy. All right, no matter what, even when he moves, keep an eye on this guy. Follow him around. Obviously, he's got some great things that he's talked about tonight. And I personally enjoyed listening to his take on things. It's not often when you hear an intuitive side of things versus the same old, tech talk and, hey, I captured this, I captured that, and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of that same cycle we've been seeing. So it's to me, it's a fresh take, or just a different take. And I like that. I always enjoy those things. So guys, follow this guy. Again, go to his Facebook, keep an eye on him. If he has to set up new social media when he moves, make sure you click on that. Make sure you like on all of his stuff, guys. And remember, hey, seek the truth. We'll see you in the next video, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
No problem.